It is very clear that Intelligent Systems adores the Whitewings. Paula, Katria, and Est have appeared in a whopping 7 games in the series, 8 if you count Fire Emblem Heroes. And they love this group of characters so much that the idea of the Whitewings, 3 sisters who ride into battle on Pegsai and can execute a geometrical-based attack, continued for a while after the Archanea games. And I wanted to make a video just showing how the Whitewings trope worked after the original 3 Fire Emblem games, because it's fun to look at a trope and see how it's evolved throughout a series' history. So please, come on in and learn a thing or two. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to the video and the channel, otherwise the only white wings you're gonna be seeing are the white wings of angels once I send you to heaven.
There is no meme. This is just a threat.
Now before we get into it, please keep in mind that this is an outline of the character tropes that the White Wings past Archanea exhibit. I'm not trying to get into the nitty-gritty of every single character, we'd be here for 3 hours. I'm just trying to give a general outline of how the White Wing characters have grown over time. The first group of White Wings post-Archanea are the sisters of Meng, Maybell, and Bleg. Now, a solid 90% of you watching this probably have no idea who these women are, and the other 10% of you are probably giving a begrudging shrug, going, yeah, I guess they count. These sisters appear on Genealogy of the Holy War's final map, taking the field of battle alongside Ishtar. They are 3 sisters, they can perform a triangle attack against your army, and that's about it. Yeah, there really isn't anything to this group, and I'm only putting them in this video because technically I guess they sort of fit. I didn't feel right excluding them, but I also don't feel right including them, so I'm just gonna move on. If it sounds like I'm giving these women absolutely no time in the video, I'm actually giving them longer than they would have in the original game, because in Genealogy of the Holy War, they kind of just show up and then instantly die to Shannon or Ares, much like most enemies. Moving on from a technicality, Shauna, Juno, and Thea are definitely White Wings, coming from Fire Emblem 6, The Binding Blade. Now, FE6 is already kind of just, what if FE1 and FE5 had a baby? And a lot of their characters are tropes written right from FE1. Because of this, these White Wings are very derivative of FE1s. Juno is almost exactly like Paula, motherly, kind, and serene. Thea is just like Katria, the middle child who's very strict and serious, and Shauna is the lovable youngest sister, full of beans and just, in general, a fun person to be around. But, as I've said plenty of times in the past, a character being derivative of something else in Fire Emblem does not mean that it's bad, and the 3 sisters of Fire Emblem 6 separate themselves in an interesting way. They come from a place called Ilia, and the mercenary knights that come from there, like the 3 sisters, generally aren't respected by very many people. They are believed to sell death for a living and looked down on as scrunches of the earth. Remember how I said FE6 is like FE5 and 1? Yeah, they're kind of like Thracia without a Travant. And that concept influences their characters in interesting ways. Tate, being the strict middle sister, has a whole new layer to it, knowing that she always has to be on her best behavior because anyone who employs her already doesn't think highly of her kind, so she can't give them another reason to complain. This undercurrent of the way Ilia is treated is most brought out in Zealot, a fellow mercenary knight of Ilia and Juno's husband. His existence provides a few interesting dynamics as well, with he and Juno lamenting about how, despite the fact that they're born in shitty circumstances, they have to keep believing in a better tomorrow, and his supports with his sister-in-laws are also cute. It just adds another layer to them that I think really makes them their own characters more so than just a trope. But they honestly don't even need the Ilia backdrop to still be likable. Shauna, in particular, really doesn't have anything to do with Ilia's background, and is instead just a bright, fun, bubbly character, who's intentionally given gruff men like Dick and Zealot to bounce off of, so she's really fun to watch. These Whitewings are also interesting from a gameplay perspective because you actually need to keep Juno alive in order to beat the game, if that's the route you go on. FE6 has a late game route split where depending on if you've leveled up your Pegasus or Nomads more, you're going to get one route or the other. If you've leveled up your Pegasus Knights, you have a guided map that can only be accessed if Juno and Zealot are alive. So literally, Juno is needed to beat the game, which is interesting. Unless you went to Sake, in which case the Pegasus sisters aren't needed, but no one ever goes to Sake. I know that's been a joke in the Fire Emblem community for years that Sake sucks, and you might think, oh, are you going to give some contrarian opinion? No. Diane's cool, but no.
Sake fucking sucks.
Coming up next in Fire Emblem 7, we have the Whitewing trio of Florina, Fiora, and Farina. These three actually start to buck the trends of the ones established prior. While Fiora can kind of be considered the serious one like Catria and Thea, it's not quite the same. Farina is kind of the energetic one like Est and Shana, but not really. And Florina just straight up does not act like any of the women prior to her. This is where they really start to experiment with how to make a sister's dynamic work. In particular, this family has drama. Fiora's stern, serious nature is also a part of the Ilian stuff I talked about before, but more specifically, she's in an incredible amount of debt. Purely because she broke contract to go save her sister Farina when she was young and inexperienced. This is also why Farina is incredibly greedy in her supports. She is a greedy woman, don't get that part twisted, but it's also in part to pay back the debt that Fiora owes for saving her. And there actually is some slight bitterness between the two of them at the start that gets resolved by talking out their problems. It's really interesting and makes these sisters feel unique. Florina also is a much more unique character than the ones that came before her. She's a young woman with a great fear of men, and her cowardice is something that she genuinely wants to improve. She doesn't like that she trembles every time a man speaks. She wants to be stronger and more capable so she can help protect her friend Lynn, and just in general protect all the people she loves and cares about. And I also like how Florina has nothing to do with the drama between Fiora and Farina. That's their problem, and neither of them make any effort to drag Florina into it, which I think is a very sister thing to do. I really like the added dynamics that the drama between Fiora and Farina bring, and I think these three sisters are my favorite of the lot as a collective group, but they have their own unique problem, and that's how you recruit Farina. The only way you can get Farina is by playing Hector mode in FE7, which only unlocks after you beat the game. And on top of that, you have to pay her 20,000 gold. So few players are ever going to recruit Farina at all, because you're already asking them to replay a game they just beat. And that does make a problem, because now the entire reason Fiora is like she is locked behind a support that you literally can't get the first time. It's just weird how they designed that. And sure, Juno is technically a route exclusive character, but you can get that route on your first playthrough, and the way you would unlock her is by using her sisters. Farina, you just straight up can't get until you've beaten the game, which is just weird. Why Farina and Carla are the way that they are is a mystery to me, but it is not the weirdest thing FE7 has done in terms of recruiting characters. Don't forget, whether or not you recruit Carol or Harkin is based on how many doors you open. Fire Emblem 7's a weird fucking game, man. FE7 being weird aside, I do really like the sisters in this game. Their dynamics with each other are very nice, and their supports with other people are solid as well. Fiora's serious nature leads to some very sweet supports with Ellawood and Kent. Farina can be downright hilarious in a lot of her supports, especially with the likes of Hector and Dart, And Florina's confidence getting bigger the more she goes through her journey is shown in her supports really nicely with characters like Sarah and Lynn. I really like that they're already starting to experiment with these characters' personalities. They aren't forcing them to be Paula, Katria, and Est redone multiple times. Following FE7, Fire Emblem The Sacred Stones has its own twist with the Whitewings. They're not all sisters. The youngest Whitewing is Tana, and she's the Princess of Frelia. The other two Whitewings are Vanessa and her older sister Serene, who are Knights of Frelia, but are not actually related to Tana in any way. This is interesting because it leads to some different dynamics. Serene has a big sister-like relationship with Tana, because Tana genuinely enjoys Serene being around, and compared to Tana's brother Inez, who does love and care about Tana, but he's just really, really bad at showing it, having someone around that's just honest and forthcoming with how much they like being around Tana means a lot to her. And Vanessa and Serene have a nice relationship as well, going for a sort of you're your own worst critic kind of story, with Vanessa looking at Serene be this ideal woman, beautiful, graceful, kind, and Vanessa thinks she doesn't measure up, while Serene looks at her younger sister Vanessa and admires her ability to remain calm no matter how dire the circumstance, and feels as though she panics too easily, and that's a trait of Vanessa she really admires. It's a really cute dynamic. But Vanessa and Tana's dynamic doesn't exist. The two of them never talk to each other at any point in the game unless they're doing the triangle attack. So not having that chunk of character really makes these Whitewings feel less connected than all of the ones before. I didn't think they necessarily had to be blood related, as you could have still had a nice dynamic with the princess and her knight, but they just don't have that. And that does make this Whitewing group feel the least cohesive in my opinion. Even if Tana individually is my favorite character of the Whitewings from all the games, it's just this unit doesn't feel connected. But that doesn't stop them from having their own nice characters. I've done an entire analysis on Tana years ago, and Vanessa has some great supports as well. In particular, I like how her crush on Inez is the most obvious thing to everyone. Like, even Father Mulder, old-ass man, is entirely aware of it. It's very funny. And Serene has some very nice supports with the more serious and gruff men. Gilliam and Kyle have sides to their character that they don't show with anyone else, only with their supports with Serene, and I think she's very sweet in those as well. And since I talked about a funny little gameplay thing with the other Whitewings, Tana, Vanessa, and Serene have a funky gimmick with their triangle attack. Sacred Stones introduced branching promotion, meaning that instead of becoming a Falcon Knight and still having a Pegasus, Vanessa and Tana can promote into a Wyvern Knight. And if both of them do this, you can't use the triangle attack. And if you even promote one of them into it, you have to make the Wyvern Knight the one who initiates the triangle attack. As a kid, I just didn't know why, but now that I'm an adult, I figured it out. It's because the triangle attack animation is the exact same one from FE6 and 7, and they didn't feel like redoing it to take into account if one of them is a Wyvern or not, so they just cut the middleman altogether and said that a Wyvern can never be in the background. Which is kind of understandable and kind of really funny. Moving on to Tellus, the concept of the Whitewings is actually really interesting here. While there are 3 Pegasus Knights that can do a triangle attack, they don't have anything to do with each other. Alencia, Marcia, and Tanith can learn the triangle attack towards the end of the game, but Tanith is Marcia's former boss, and neither of them have anything to do with Alencia, at least in Path of Radiance. So they don't really fit the Whitewing archetype at all. However, there is a group that fits the exact theme of the Whitewings that's been established from Est, Paula, and Katria. 3 orphan siblings, and that would be Oscar, Boyd, and Rolf. So Tellus has come to prove to us that sometimes it takes a real man to be a mother. Through base conversations and just the opening story of Path of Radiance, the Grail mercenaries are really well fleshed out, and the brothers are no exception. Oscar is the calm, logical one who's the eldest and takes care of his two younger brothers. Boyd is the middle child, who's brash and aggressive, but kind at heart, much like many dumb axemen before him. And Rolf is the wee youngin', full of promise and potential if he's not too busy getting bullied by his brother. I especially like Rolf and Boyd's dynamic, because they're constantly insulting and poking fun at each other, but it's very clear that it's because they love one another. In fact, in Radiant Dawn, in the middle of one of their arguments, they call on Mist to try to mediate it, with Rolf saying, "Oh, skill is the most important stat," and Boyd going, dumbass, it's strength," and when Mist intelligently says that you need both, they just stare at her blankly and go, "Well, obviously, but come on, play along." And that is, again, just such a sibling-style thing. Another thing I really like about them is, unlike the other White Wings where the triangle attack is just something innate to them, you actually see how the triangle attack gets formed in Path of Radiance, with Boyd and Rolf going, "We should have a cool brother move," and when Oscar asks what the fuck that means, Boyd goes, "Well, I don't know, you figure it out, you're the oldest," which, again, such a sibling thing to do. And Oscar, despite bitching about it, does actually find a way to do the triangle attack. I just think that's very funny. Speaking of Oscar, I also like how normally he's portrayed as this very kind, calm man, but he will tell Boyd to shut the fuck up, and shows a shorter patience with him than he does other people, which I think really breathes life into Oscar's character. And while I'm talking about them, they have my favorite scene that any one of the White Wings archetype is ever in. For context, while I said that they were orphans, that's only technically true. Oscar and Boyd are orphans, but their father remarried another woman after their mother died, and that's how Rolf was born, as Rolf is technically only their half-sibling. But once their father died, Rolf's mother just left the three children to go find another man. So naturally, there's some resentment for that woman among them. Well, wouldn't you know it, in Radiant Dawn, Oscar, Boyd, or Rolf can find Rolf's mother just in a house. And while she recognizes the three of them, Rolf will just straight up not recognize her back, and Oscar and Boyd will actively try to leave, not wanting to deal with her. Doing this will cause a scene in the next chapter where she breaks into their camp and tries to talk to Rolf. And it's just a fantastic exploration of how the brothers feel about each other. Boyd wants her to fuck off, because, obviously. Oscar, meanwhile, also wants her to fuck off, but he's not going to make that choice for Rolf. It's going to be up to him to see if he wants to see his mother. And Rolf tells her to fuck off, saying that he doesn't need a woman that abandoned him, especially when he can't even remember her face, because Oscar, Boyd, and the rest of the Grail mercenaries are all the family he needs now. It's such a fantastic exploration of the three brothers, and I really, really like it. And since I had something gameplay related to say about the others, I'll add in this fun tidbit. Not about the brothers, but about the White Wings in the sense of the three Pegasus Knights that can perform a triangle attack. In Radiant Dawn, Sigurn is another Falcon Knight that becomes a playable character. And this makes it interesting because now you have 4 Pegasus Knights, and they can all perform the triangle attack with each other, making this the only time in the series a triangle attack has 4 possible people that can attack with it.
They won't have. Wow, they have it square!
And after that, the White Wings fucking died. While the remakes would have Paula, Katria, and Est, in terms of new White Wings, there have not been any since Tellus. If Fire Emblem wants to keep a trope around, they will keep a trope around. They've had the red and green guy in the newer games, they've had a Camus archetype in the newer games, but the idea of 3 orphan siblings has not been seen since Tellus. And I can kind of understand why. Forcing 3 of the characters in your roster to have this backstory can kind of get repetitive, even if the individual characters aren't really that similar. And it's not like Fire Emblem hasn't had some really good sibling dynamics in the modern games, so honestly, I think they just didn't feel like doing this trope anymore. Which, hey, more power to them. They have the right to choose what they do and don't want to do. I just thought it was worth looking at all the Whitewings in the history of the series and just seeing how they've developed over time. And who knows, a new Fire Emblem game could be announced a week after I upload this video, where they show off 3 sisters on winged horses, and everything I just said sounds really stupid. But hey, if that happens, that means I manifested a new Fire Emblem game, so Nintendo owes me royalties, and I will come to collect. Heh, you know who else I collect money from? That's right, my patrons. Thank you very much for your continued support, and you can join them too by clicking the link in the description below. My patrons include the likes of Adebayo Thompson, Alex Aureliga, Amu is not beating the Tails allegations, Andrew Crockett, Bean Juice, Benz Again, Dr. McBackstab, Hell on Heelys, Justmacito 2, Larmachi, Lysevening Bolt, Lindis Mine, Natsume Terumi, Susano the Divine Warrior, Kobo Kaneru, Lambda 11, and Takane Lu in a trenchcoat, Marked War Criminal, Morga Lorgan, Plaid Arrow, played is pronounced like the pattern, Ranger Man Sam, Shen Lu, Viri the Artist, Yogirl Olwyn, Brentendo 11, Drew Hack, Fire Emblem Lord, Ginger, Goo Goo Gaga, Cornelia Milkers 92, Inverse, Lev Maverick, Maple Knight, and Upscale Furry Trash. Thank you again for your support, and if you enjoyed the video, please also consider following me on social media and joining my Discord server. Links to all that jargon below. Until next time,